Chapter 1, enter URL. 2, ART server IP cache. 3, ART server IP unknown. 4, DNS server MAC unknown. 5, ART server IP known, MAC unknown. Let's walk through the process of transmitting the Mona Lisa image from our server to the client computer. We'll start with the client entering a URL. Client enters /artserver.comlisa.jpg. There are two cases. 1. IP address is cached locally in your router or by your ISP. You can avoid sending a new DNS request. If not, we have to send a DNS request. Further, if DNS server MAC address is unknown, then device sends an ARP broadcast. DNS server responds with its MAC address, and it caches. Now let's focus on the DNS request and response headers. A DNS request usually fits in a single UDP datagram. Here's an example of DNS request packet headers. DNS header, UDP header, IP header, Now browser is ready to send an ARP request to find the MAC of ART server. Who has IP address of ART server? I need your MAC address to communicate with you. The client broadcasts an ARP request to the entire LAN. The ART server unicasts an ARP reply with its MAC address. The client stores this in its ARP cache. Now let's focus on the ARP request and reply headers. Here's the ARP request Ethernet frame and ARP packet. Here's the ARP reply Ethernet frame, ARP packet. The client now sends an HTTP GET request to the server's IP address. Break a packet leaving the client, traveling through routers R8, R7, R6, R4, R2, and R1 to reach the server. Let's explore the HTTP GET request header, a crucial part of web communication. Ethernet frame, IP header. Here's the HTTP header. The ART server also uses Apache server software, receives the request, processes it, and prepares to send the Mona Lisa image back to the client. The server, running Apache HTTP server, prepares an HTTP response containing an image of size 5400 bytes. Given the network's maximum transmission unit, MTU, of 1500 bytes, with 20 bytes each for the IP and TCP headers, 460 bytes are available for the payload in each packet. To transmit the 5400 byte image, the server will need to send 4 packets, since 5400B/TAT, 460 bytes per packet, rounds up to 4. As packets traverse the network, routers make real-time decisions on the best path. ARP requests are only sent again if the cache entry expires or the MAC address changes. So after sending the HTTP GET request, no new ARP request is needed, as long as the cache is valid. Let's focus on the HTTP GET response packet headers. Packet 1 initiates the transmission. It includes a comprehensive HTTP header detailing response metadata, followed by TCP and IP headers. Here's the HTTP header, TCP header, IP header, Ethernet frame of the packet 1. HTTP header, TCP header, IP header, Ethernet frame of packet 2. Packets 3 and 4 are part of the same data transfer, sharing the same protocol and general structure, but they differ in their sequence numbers, and the specific portion of data they carry. Let's observe how network conditions affect these choices. As packets traverse the network, routers make real-time decisions on the best path. Before sending its first packet, the server checks its ARP cache for the MAC address of its default gateway, R1. If not found, it broadcasts an ARP request. ARP request header. R1 responds with its MAC address. ARP reply header. The server updates its ARP cache and sends the packet to R1. R1 checks its routing table to find the next hop, R2, and performs its own ARP process to resolve R2's MAC address. This process repeats at each router, R1, R2, up to R8, until the packet reaches the client's network. The client receives the packets, potentially out of order, and reassembles them based on their sequence numbers. Their TCP headers show increasing sequence numbers, indicating progression through the file. Finally, the web browser processes the received data and renders the Mona Lisa image on the screen.